This is Pet Life Radio. Let's talk pets.
Welcome to ER Vet on Pet Life Radio. I'm your host, Dr. Justine Lee, and I'm a board-certified emergency critical care veterinary specialist and toxicologist. Thanks for joining us. Today, we're going to be talking about holiday dangers poisonous to dogs and cats. So if you're getting ready for the holidays, you want to tune in. We'll be right back after these messages.
It's designerpetsweaters.com. Hand-knitted designer sweaters for your precious pup or cool cat. Beautiful couture patterns for your pets, including custom-knitted formal wear, casual wear, yachting, and even sports-themed. Many designer pet sweaters include feathered tammy hats, top hats, and a lot of sparkle. Each sweater includes leg loops, front paw sleeves, and leash opening. Visit designerpetsweaters.com to order your four-legged fashions today. Your pets will stay warm for the winter and be runway ready. Large or small, we fit them all. designerpetsweaters.com.
Let's Talk Pets on PetLifeRadio.com.
Welcome back to ER Vet on Pet Life Radio. Now, I know you're really busy getting ready for the holidays, and the last thing you want to do is to have an emergency visit to your vet at 2 a.m. or 6 a.m. when you're really stressed out and all your family and friends are in town. So what we're going to talk about today are some holiday dangers that are in your house that you have to make sure to keep away from your dog and cat. First of all, before we begin, I want to debunk the myth about poinsettias. Everyone's always really paranoid thinking that poinsettias are really poisonous. Well, to be quite honest, that's a total myth. Please don't propagate the myth. You can have poinsettias in your house during the holidays. Now, if you've actually ever bent the leaf or the stem of a poinsettia, you'll notice there's a milky white sap that comes out. And it's actually that sap that's really bitter, and it's just a little mild irritant to the stomach or the mouth. So your dog or your cat might have a little bit of vomiting if they eat a whole poinsettia, but in general, these are pretty safe plants to have around the holidays. The bigger danger is if someone brings a flower bouquet into your house. And the main reason why is because most flower bouquets are made up of Asiatic or stargazer lilies. Sometimes they're even Easter lilies. So for you cat owners out there, keep in mind that true lilies from the Lilium or Hemerocallis species are really poisonous. You never ever want to bring them into your house. As little as 2 or 3 leaves or petals, or even the pollen, can result in severe acute kidney injury in a cat. In fact, even if a cat drinks the water out of the vase, they can potentially go into kidney failure. Thankfully, dogs aren't affected, but keep this in mind whenever someone brings over a bouquet. Even the green leaves are really poisonous. So again, poinsettias are okay. Anything that's a lily, you don't want to bring into the house if you have cats. Now, some other Yuletide plants that people will often have in their house during the holidays are mistletoe or even holly. And honestly, mistletoe was rumored to be poisonous, but it's really mildly toxic. It might cause a little bit of vomiting and diarrhea. In terms of holly, that one you do want to keep away from your dog and cat because those have a little bit of a sharp spike and they're a little bit thick. So if your dog or cat eats a bunch of holly, that can actually get stuck in the stomach for quite a long time. The bigger danger around the holidays are things that are in the kitchen or under the tree. Now, in the United States, it seems like every holiday is associated with chocolate. And I know I love getting chocolate-covered espresso beans. But the problem is, if you have someone that's giving you the gift of chocolate, they just got back from Hawaii, they have chocolate-covered macadamia nuts, this is actually a double whammy. because not only can your dog potentially eat through that present and eat through all that wrapping, but they get the double whammy of being poisoned by the chocolate and the potential caffeine in the espresso beans or the macadamia nuts. Macadamia nuts, actually, most people don't know this, but they can actually cause a temporary paralysis. So make sure not to put any food items under the Christmas tree because your dog can still smell it through all that wrapping and they may chew into it. Another food danger that I see are fattening rich meat scraps. So when people are cooking that Christmas turkey or that holiday ham, they may accidentally drop some on the floor for your dog to pick up. And that can actually result in inflammation of the pancreas or pancreatitis. That can cause severe vomiting, diarrhea, abdominal pain, and it may actually result in a severe life-threatening hospitalization. If you have a miniature schnauzer, a Yorkshire Terrier, or a Shetland Sheepdog, you want to be particularly careful because those three breeds of dogs are especially predisposed to pancreatitis. So fattening foods are an absolute no-no for those breeds. The next kitchen danger I wanted to talk about is actually unbaked bread dough. Now, most of the time, I never am baking during the holidays, but for those of you guys who like to bake a lot, we often will see dogs eat a small piece of unbaked bread dough. And the problem is if that unbaked bread dough contains yeast, it can actually rise from the warmth of your dog's stomach and expand, causing stomach bloat. The other important thing to remember is the sugar within the unbaked bread dough is actually metabolized into carbon dioxide and alcohol. So not only do we see potential stomach bloat and secondary gastric dilatation volvulus, but we can actually see alcohol poisoning. Now, alcohol poisoning can actually result in a life-threateningly low blood sugar. It can make your dog drunk, and it can actually slow down the heart rate and the respiratory rate. So it can potentially be life-threatening. So when in doubt, keep unbaked bread dough out of reach, because that's one of the main sources where I can actually see alcohol poisoning. Thankfully, most pet owners are smart enough not to give alcohol itself, like in the form of whiskey or rum, to their dog or cat. But I've definitely seen animals accidentally poisoned. And one of the biggest incriminators, fruitcake that's soaked in rum. Yes, I've seen dogs eat the whole fruitcake that's soaked in rum. And not only are they poisoned by the raisins, which causes acute kidney injury, but then they get really drunk from all the alcohol. So the smartest thing you can do is to actually keep your dog in the crate or in a totally different room when you're cooking during the holidays. Now, we'll continue with our really cool topic right after these messages from our sponsors.
He was malnourished and emaciated.
Constant scratching and just being unpleasant.
He was shedding excessively.
He was losing his fur.
Franklin was rescued from the streets of Los Angeles.
Bear was a rescue from the same shelter in Kansas City, Missouri that I got JJ the Terrier.
I found his raw meat diet, which is raw meat, eggs, rice, and Dinovite and Lico Chops. His omega-3 supplement on Dinovite.com.
DINOVITE.com. I've got my ground beef, the Dinovite, and I just mix it all together with the eggs and the shells.
Franklin, he's thriving. His coat is soft and shiny. He's shedding much less.
They're much happier. Their coats are better. Their behavior, especially their behavior, is better. How do you feed your shelter dog to derive a great attitude?
Start that little pet off right.
859-428-1000.
859-428-1000.
Just go to Dinovite.com.
DINOVITE.com.
Let's talk pets
Let's talk pets
on Pet Life Radio.
Pet Life Radio.
PetLifeRadio.com.
Welcome back to ER Vet on Pet Life Radio. We've been talking about holiday dangers that are poisonous to your dog and cat. We've also talked about different foods that can be really poisonous that are seen more in the holidays. And the last thing I wanted to talk about are holiday decorations. Now, if you have a cat or if you have a few cats, you absolutely cannot put up any tinsel on your Christmas tree. Now, tinsel itself isn't poisonous, but it's really dangerous to cats. Sometimes dogs will get into it too. So when in doubt, nothing stringy. That includes tinsel, ribbon, string, or yarn. And you're probably asking yourself why. Well, cats are so curious, they start to play with that tinsel and then they actually swallow it. And the problem is that it's so stringy that that tinsel or that yarn can wrap around the base of the tongue and actually anchor itself in the stomach, making it impossible to pass through the intestines. The problem is when a cat or a dog eats this type of tinsel or really long stringy material, it results in a linear foreign body. In other words, where the tinsel is anchored, it can actually start to saw through the tissue as the intestines contract. And this results in a severe life-threatening emergency. It can actually perforate their intestines. So you don't want your holiday bonus to go towards a really expensive abdominal surgery in your dog or cat during the holidays. So keep all tinsel, ribbon, string, and yarn out of reach. Another danger that I worry about is people will put up decorations or certain holiday scents around the house. And one of them is liquid potpourri. Now, regular potpourri that you leave on the counter, most cats will leave that alone. But the dangerous type is a type that you actually plug in and there's a little heater, or you use a candle and that heats up the potpourri. While that makes your house smell really good, like evergreen or cinnamon, the liquid potpourri itself actually contains chemicals called cationic detergents. And unfortunately, when your cat's really curious, they may take 1 or 2 licks from these simmering potpourri pots. While it's safe for dogs, when it's accidentally licked up by a cat, it can actually be corrosive, which means it causes severe chemical burns in the mouth, esophagus, and stomach. You definitely want to keep these out of reach of your cat. So my general rule is if you have cats, no liquid potpourri, no tinsel, string, or anything that is long and fabricy that's going to get stuck in their intestines. Again, for dogs, that's less of a problem, but just be smart and pet-proof appropriately. My last hint about the holidays is that if your family's in town and they're not used to having dogs or cats around, they may not be as pet savvy as you are. So they may accidentally give your dog some food. They may accidentally leave their medications on the night table or in their suitcase, and your dog or your cat can accidentally get into these. So don't worry about offending them. Just ask them to close their door or to make sure to keep their suitcase elevated and not to feed your dog or cat without asking permission first. Hopefully, all those hints will help you and your pets have a safe holiday. So again, just to recap, keep those Yuletide plants like poinsettias, lilies, mistletoe, and holly high up out of reach. Keep your dogs and cats out of the kitchen and make sure not to have any food packaged under your Christmas tree so they don't get into chocolate, macadamia nuts, chocolate-covered espresso beans, or even raisins. Make sure to keep those fattening, rich meat scraps on the table and make sure not to feed your dog or your cat anything so they don't develop pancreatitis. And lastly, when you're decorating your house, keep certain types of holiday decorations out of reach. Again, no tinsel or liquid potpourri. My other hint is when you're decorating the Christmas tree, you want to make sure it's well secured because your cat's going to try to climb up it. I also like to put a little bit of aluminum foil around the base of the tree, covering up the water so my cat or dog doesn't lick out of that water, because that can actually have fertilizers or fungicides that can make your dog or cat a little bit sick if they drink out of that. When in doubt, if you think your dog or cat ate something poisonous, you always want to call your veterinarian, ER vet, or the ASPCA Animal Poison Control Center right away. I know you don't want to go into the emergency room with your dog or cat, but sometimes with poisonings, the sooner you diagnose it, the easier it is to potentially treat, and the less invasive and dangerous it is to your pet, and the less expensive it will be for you. So help avoid a trip to the ER vet and help pet-proof your house appropriately over these holidays. And with that, I hope you guys all have a wonderful holiday to the 2- and 4-legged family members in your house. Well, that brings us to the end of today's show. Find me on drjustinelee.com, on Facebook at Dr. Justine Lee, or email me at drjustine@petliferadio.com. With that, we're out of time, and we want to thank our producer, Mark Winter, for making this show possible. Have a wonderful holiday, and we'll see you at the next episode.
Let's Talk Pets, every week on demand, only on PetLifeRadio.com.